All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to get started here just at the top of the hour. Oh, and look, it is the top of the hour. Perfect. So while folks are still rolling in and connecting to audio, we're going to go ahead and get started because we've got a jam-packed agenda here. So welcome, everyone, to our All Things AI Artificial Intelligence workshop. We have a fun agenda planned. So let us start by answering this question in the chat. On a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you use AI? 1 being never and 10 being all the time. I'll pause and let those answers roll in. But for those of you I have not met, I'm Chelsea Summerlin, the ICFL's Digital Skills Library Consultant, and I'm joined today by a couple of other ICFL staff members. Allison, Dina, Doug, Dylan, and William. I'm going to let them introduce themselves real quick. Start with Allison.
We'll go alphabetical order. I'm Allison Meyer. I'm the Public Library Program Specialist, and I will be watching the chat. So any comments, I'll try to keep track of in there.
Perfect. Thanks, Allison.
Am I next alphabetically?
You are, Dina. There's too many D's. It's not
I
fair.
know. I was racking my brain there for a minute. I'm Dina Brown. I'm the Adult Services Library Consultant at ICFL.
Perfect. Doug.
I'm Doug Baker. I'm the Library Technology Consultant here at the Idaho Commission for Libraries.
Dylan.
Yes, Dylan Baker, Deputy State Librarian here at the Idaho Commission for Libraries.
Awesome. And William.
I'm William Lamb. I'm the E-Services Program Supervisor here at ICFL.
Perfect. All right, Allison, what are we seeing for numbers in the chat?
We are seeing quite a range, not surprisingly. A couple ones, several ones, and then a couple people. We have 1 8,
All right.
a couple 7s. So quite scattered.
Quite scattered. Okay, well, that is exactly what I expected. So that's nice. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to have a quick introduction, which we're almost through. We're going to set the stage. We'll talk about what AI is for all of you under 5, some use cases, information literacy, and then some ethical considerations. And we're going to have a quick wrap up where I'll share a feedback survey for you all. So as the chat just demonstrated, a lot of you have various experiences with AI. And today's workshop is primarily going to be an overview of the concepts behind AI and considerations when interacting with it. If you're interested in a deeper dive into specific tools and use cases, please fill out that feedback survey that we'll share and let me know. Today's workshop is designed to be interactive. We hope that you can learn from us and each other by participating in the activities we have planned. Throughout our discussion, we'll have opportunities to answer polls or put answers in the chat. And after we've made it through our content, we'll split into breakout rooms where we'll give you all a prompt to discuss AI in a small group. We'll have an ICFL staff member in each of the rooms to help you all have a fabulous discussion. We hope that if you're able, you'll turn your cameras on and use your mic. If you're unable to for some reason, please engage in the chat. Everyone will get more out of today's session if we can all participate. Today's session is 1 hour and we'll get you out of here by noon Mountain Time. The breakout room will not be recorded, but the main room where we are right now is being recorded. Everyone who registered will receive a link to the recording in a handout after today's workshop. Throw questions in the chat and we'll address them as we go. If we don't get to your question, please feel free to call or email us. We're always happy to chat with you. All right, let's kick this off for real here by answering another question in the chat. So, what types of AI have you interacted with or experienced? Or if you don't think you've interacted with AI at all, what do you know about AI? And the second part of that question is, what have you heard about AI? What have you read or what have your friends or coworkers told you? I'll pause for a moment, let folks answer some of those in the chat again.
ChatGPT, search engines and their natural language searching.
Okay,
Elizabeth said it is often wrong. Diane
excellent.
says Google search, ChatGPT again, more ChatGPT, PowerPoint AI.
Okay.
Gemini Copilot, another Chat GPT, a couple more Chat GPTs, search engines, software enhancements. Let's see. Interesting to see how AI is being used in browsers now. Transcription software, photo and editing software, Canva AI.
Okay.
Image generators, also through Adobe, another Canva mention. Google LM. And then hearing about deep fakes. And don't like its use in hiring applicant screening.
All right.
And then also Lily AI assistant.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We've got more coming in. It's up to you, Chelsea, if you want to keep.
All right. I think we've got a range here, but I think we'll power through here. So, the range of answers shows us one thing for sure. AI is a hot topic right now, and there are a lot of voices chiming in on the discussion and a lot of people that want you to buy their products that now have AI in it. So part of what we're doing today is trying to level set. What does AI even mean? How is it being used? Will it take over the world? Should we be afraid of Doug's background? Are the robots coming for me? These are some of the questions we're looking to answer and to discuss today. And I want to acknowledge that however that you're personally feeling about AI is okay. If you think this is the coolest thing ever, that's great. If you're suspicious and a little bit scared, that's okay too. All technology brings change with it, from the sewing machine to the printing press to the internet to the tractor. All mechanical and technological advances shape our world. AI could be the next big thing, or it could fizzle out. Only time will tell. AI is an emerging field, so we might not have all of the answers, but we can all put our thinking caps on and engage critically. From here, I'm going to pass it to Doug to talk about what AI actually is.
All right, thanks, Chelsea.
Yeah.
So we're going to start this off. We're going to have you take a quick poll on what you think AI is. You've got two choices here. Is AI the capability of a computer system or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior? Or is AI computer intelligence that matches or surpasses human capabilities across all cognitive tasks? So I'll give you just a few seconds, minute to answer that, and we'll see what you all think. So it looks like we've got a bunch of you that are answering the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior. Few of you think that it's intelligence that matches or surpasses human capabilities. All right, looks like answers have stopped coming in. So the correct answer to that is the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior. So good job to all of those that answered that one correctly. So what exactly is AI? Let's simplify that definition just a little bit. Artificial intelligence is basically fancy computer math. It's completely artificial, as in based on machines rather than real people or animals. And it is intelligence because its data, when given the correct inputs, can output information that can appear like human intelligence. However, that doesn't mean it is actually intelligence or actually intelligent. For example, think of the dumbest dog you know. And I know a few. That one right there looks pretty, well, I'll leave that up to you to decide. But that dog that you're thinking of is still smarter than any AI system. AI can appear smarter than the dog, but at the end of the day, It's just zeros and ones, and zeros and ones aren't intelligence, they're math. Not only are they just math, but math that was given to the computer by intelligent humans. These systems didn't create themselves. So where do you see AI in everyday life? You often see AI show up in things like predictive text on your phone or computer. It suggests addresses, say if you're using Google Maps. It'll recommend things for you on Netflix or YouTube or any of the other various streaming services. And it's used in a whole lot more places that aren't typically thought of as being AI. That's a pretty broad definition, though. When most people are talking about AI these days, they're typically talking about generative AI. Generative AI is artificial intelligence that is capable of generating new content in response to a submitted prompt by learning from a large reference of databases of examples. So it can create something quote unquote new from a simple question. We'll actually talk about whether or not the content that is being generated is actually new in a little bit though. All AI is trained on mass amounts of data found on the internet. We'll talk about the data usage here in more detail a little bit later, but for now, just know that if you ever posted on social media, had a blog, a website, or simply existed, which I'm pretty sure everybody here probably has existed at one point or another, currently exists. If you fall under any of those categories, your data was likely scraped from the internet and fed to those AI models. So common types of generative AI include large language models or LLMs that generate text, images, and all kinds of audio and video. Generative AI is being embedded into a lot of tools currently. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about integration with just about everything. But for example, OCLC is integrating AI, Canva, Microsoft, Adobe, Google. They're all rolling out generative AI tools into their products. So we'll be talking about use cases for generative AI here in a minute. But first, let's talk a little bit about that second definition we gave for that poll. The one that says AI can match or surpass human intelligence. That's what's normally called general AI. It is a state of computer science that we haven't quite achieved yet. That's the scenario, as Chelsea said, where you may be running into this guy over here, and you need to start worrying about the robots taking over. So we're not there yet, thankfully. At least the robots, anyway. In that scenario, the computers don't need humans at all. They are trained by they aren't trained by algorithms or data. They learn organically, like you or I would. How close we are to that, developing that type of artificial intelligence that would be as intelligent as a human, or even a pug wearing bunny ears. Well, there's a lot of speculation and opinion on that. Some people think it's very soon and just right around the corner. But there are others that argue that we may never get there. So we'll leave that up to what the futurists think and what the actual future may hold. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Chelsea, and she's going to talk a little bit about common uses for generative AI. So take it away, Chelsea.
All right. Thanks, Doug. So first, I'd love to hear from you if you're working in libraries or other organizations. What way are you or your organization using AI? And if you're beginning to talk to your customers or your patrons about it, what are you teaching them about AI? So I'll wait a minute here and let some answers roll in.
Nothing quite yet.
Nothing quite yet. Okay. If no one's using AI too, that's okay.
Ah, here we
Oh,
go.
here we go.
Our STEM coordinator is using it to help with coding classes and 3D printing. The city of Nampa has created their own form of chat GPT, another chat GPT, in just generally. In general, that it is here and we need to learn how to utilize it appropriately. We have used AI to extend backgrounds for images or edit images, and even generated a few. I use it to clean up my language and policy and emails. Our ELA department has an AI policy and we teach it in class.
All right. Awesome. So quite a few of you are starting to use it. If you're not, that's okay. We're going to talk about some ways that folks generally tend to use it. So we are going to discuss common ways that people use AI, and in a few minutes, Dylan is going to talk about some important information literacy, and then Dina will tackle some ethical considerations. And we just want to say up front, just like the rest of the internet, just because someone is using AI does not mean that they should be using AI. Remember, for right now, you're still smarter than those robots. So large language models like ChatGPT or Google Gemini are frequently used as brainstorming tools. Sites like Library Robot have specific tools to help libraries brainstorm programming topics, summarize books, or work with English language students. Some folks use it to write other things too. We got a couple mentions of that in the chat. Image generators are used frequently by folks who are not as artistically inclined. These tools can create flyers for programming, logos, a bunch of other images. I liked the mention of using it to extend backgrounds. And then audio generators can be used to create realistic sounding voices. These may crop up when you're purchasing audiobooks if you do collection development. Some of these books are now read by AI instead of a person. And while libraries themselves don't appear to be using this tool as widely as some others, plenty of bad actors are. There have been reports of libraries receiving calls from people using AI audio, and because AI is always hungry for more data, people are also calling libraries to get copies of their voices to create more generated content. And then video generators are used similar to audio generators. It's the wild, wild west out here. People are creating all sorts of fantastical stories featuring cats on adventures to disinformation featuring politicians. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Dylan to talk about information literacy in the world of AI.
Thank you, Chelsea. We have a fun activity here to segue us into this next section about information literacy. So as Chelsea said, there's a lot of images cropping up, and there's a lot of ways to use those AI tools to generate them. So we're going to pop up a poll real quick here. You get to decide, of these 6 images, which ones were generated by AI and which ones are real. Just do your best. Don't stress. We're not going to grade you on this, but go ahead and make sure you scroll through the poll that came up. You should see 6 photos, and they're all going to ask the same question: was it generated by AI? Yes or no? So go ahead and please fill out that poll to the best of your ability. And I'm going to give everyone just, a minute or so to do that. So take your time, look at those images, and see if you can detect which ones were AI generated, which ones weren't. Seeing folks responding, we'll give people a little time. Kind of wish I had the Jeopardy music queued up here for folks, but you can imagine in your head, hopefully, just me saying Jeopardy music probably got that tune playing in your head for you. So, all right, it's coming through. We'll give people the right answers here in a little bit once we see most have participated. Many of you have gotten in there. It's a tricky one. This is good. I really like seeing the results coming in. We'll share those out here in just a moment. If you haven't responded yet, please do so in the next 30 seconds. Go ahead and submit. And we'll give people another 30 seconds here. Scroll through. Mostly there. And lots of pictures to look through. All right, maybe 10 more seconds. We're almost there. finish hitting that submit button if you haven't already. And all right. And I think we can go ahead and share out here. So take a look. You should now be seeing on the poll on your screen with the correct answers, your answer, and how many people thought each was generated or real. So I'm just going to quickly comment on these results here. Looks like the majority did pretty well, with the exception maybe of number 3, which is our unofficial official mascot for these courses that we've been doing, Mr. Fluffles. You may remember him if you attended the last workshop. People were tricked. Half the people were tricked on Mr. Fluffles. Mr. Fluffles, wow. I mean, I know he is adorable, but you can see how difficult it is. And this segues us right into that information literacy discussion. So please don't feel bad if you struggled a little bit on some of those, especially Mr. Fluffles. He is almost too cute for real life. So we're going to talk a little about information literacy, and we get to segue right in here to what we were just looking at, deep fakes. So deep fakes are not really new. As you are all aware, Photoshop has been around for a long time. People have been editing images, and AI is just another tool in the toolbox for creating altered images for folks to see. So sometimes it's really obvious, as you saw in probably some of those images. Maybe when you were looking through them, you could look for things like weird hands, teeth in weird places, accessories, glasses and jewelry in strange places or that look unusual with lighting. If it has a lot of different people in the image, you might notice some of those people look off. They don't look quite right. In videos, you can look for a mismatch between sound and movement. Maybe they don't have the right facial expressions. You kind of have to just kind of study it closely. Audio, listen for weird pauses, odd tones, if emotion is not quite matching up. Um, the challenge with using all of these tools, though, is that AI is getting better and better. It's a lot harder this year than it was last year to detect some of that AI-generated content. So some of those things, the telltale signs, have been phased out. You may remember in the early AI-generated days of people with 6 or 7 fingers. That seems to be less of an issue. So it's getting better and better. So instead, you need to maybe use those good old-fashioned media literacy and information literacy skills. So really, I think, for the library folks that are attending, and that's our audience for a lot of this, put on those information literacy skills you've been using the whole time. So we're going to use SIFT as one technique you could use. You can stop, slow down. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. As we know, anything on the internet that seems too good to be true, you got to really take a beat and investigate it. So the next step, investigating the source, what's the source of the website? Is it an official website? Is it something that's posting just sensational headlines, someone masquerading as something else? How long has it been around? If it's a social media account, looking at some other metadata, how many followers it has, what's the profile picture, other identifying information. So that's pretty good. To do some initial investigating. Next step in SIFT is find. Maybe you could look and see if there was some more coverage. If this is for a major event, maybe you can look and see if you can find some photos or other sources. Is there other angles, if this is a photo or video that others have, to get some different coverage on it? Just consider if you can find some additional sources in finding more coverage. And then finally, trace. So look for the original context. Where did it start? Who originated it? Was it a satirical news organization or a bot or unverifiable source? Try to track it down to where it originated from. So finally, after considering all these tools, just remember to think before you share. One of the things with generated content is they're trying to provoke an emotional reaction, whether that is to make you mad or scared or something that looks just utterly hilarious. Getting an emotional reaction will get you to share without thinking. So that's a good information literacy tip is just to pause and think, is this trying to provoke an emotional reaction from me to try and get me to spread it further? So that's getting started with those deep fakes. But another thing is kind of thinking about privacy, and this was alluded to earlier. Um, these AI models use lots and lots of data to train themselves, and everyone's data. And what is your sense of privacy? And that's something in the library profession we like to think about. So when you're using generative AI tools, is it likely that that generative AI tool is ingesting anything you give it and further adding it to the model? And possibly doing further training and refinement of the model based on what you put in. And that's pretty likely yes. Of some of the major tools. Anthropic's Claude AI is one of the only ones that we found that let you opt into model training rather than opting out. So if you're using an AI, generative AI tool, quite possibly you have been opted into just providing your content straight to train more AI, which can be concerning depending on what kind of information you're feeding it and how sensitive that might be. So a lot of those companies behind AI are the same folks who did the big social media. So of course, Facebook, Meta, Twitter, X, they have are generating some of this AI content. And we know that social media is also not super great about protecting people's privacy. So that's a consideration. And we're not entirely sure how the data is being used yet, digging through privacy policies, and it's all very quite murky on how data is being translated into these AI machines. So it's probably safest at this point just to assume any data you upload or enter into an AI, a generative AI tool is being added and sucked into those massive data sets. So definitely use caution with uploading anything that contains private financial, health, or personal identifiable information. And for those of us in the library field, certainly very sensitive things like patron records probably would be best avoided putting into generative AI, just lest you breach someone's security by adding their information to a data set that could then be exposed everywhere. Um, and finally, talking about information literacy, let's talk about just things that generative AI gets wrong. It's fancy math that is not always excellent and well understood. Autocomplete in your text keyboard may be like the most basic form of generative AI, and I don't know about the rest of you. I often find predictive text on my phone's keyboard can get things wrong. So it's best to think about that with any kinds of generative AI. In the industry, we call those hallucinations. I think that's just a fancy way of saying it's lying to you. But hallucinations is common. You'll hear that. AI can generate citations out of nowhere, make up books and quotes and data that does not exist. Librarians across the country report patrons coming in with lists of books they want to request that just don't even exist. So libraries may have run into that. I do know earlier this summer, a major newspaper ran a whole summer book reading section that was all AI generated, didn't actually exist. So we're seeing that pretty commonly across the board. Often authors are complaining about AI attributing books and articles to them that they never wrote in the first place. And then there are repercussions in the field of law where lawyers are using inaccurate case law citations because AI generated them for them, made those up out of whole cloth. So a very important thing to remember, just like your information literacy skills, is when you use generative AI, you should and you need to check it for accuracy because it's just doing predictive text based on its large language model. It doesn't know whether it's true or not. That requires human judgment in interpretation. So most language generators can be asked to provide their citations. Go ahead and make sure you check those, make sure that those citations actually exist and they're verifiable. And again, it can be very tempting to use AI to generate important documents for you. They can sound very official and use some nice, $2 words for you, but it is concerning. You need to use caution when doing things like policies using AI because you don't want to end up in a court because your policy had some stuff that was generated by AI that is not actually legal or enforceable or best practice. So same thing for using AI, generative AI for legal advice. Unfortunately, you should consult actual real life human legal counsel in these cases because you cannot trust generative AI to have fully represented everything to the 100% factual legal ability. So yeah, that's a lot about information literacy in AI, and I think there are other things to watch out for too. So I'm going to pass it on to Dina, and she can talk about some of the ethical considerations.
Hey, Dylan, thanks. Before we dive into the ethical considerations, let's do another poll. And so I want you to think about where are places that you have heard of or yourself have seen AI come up in your life. So I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to respond to the poll. So we're thinking about all the different places that you might find AI when you're out in the world, either on your computer at work, using your cell phone for personal use. Where are places that you're happening upon it? And I guess the other part of that would be that you know you're happening upon it, right? Just a few more seconds to get people's responses in there. All right, I think we could probably go ahead and end the poll and see what y'all came up with. Yes, so if you said all of the above, ding, 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 you are correct. There are so many places that AI is showing up in our lives in big and small ways. Some of them are really apparent. Some of them are a little more sneaky. And so because its presence in our lives is increasing, we thought it would be important to talk about some of the ethical considerations in this field. And just like when you have any discussion about ethics, everyone's going to have a different opinion and different feelings. And your opinion and feelings today might change over time also. As has been alluded to, the way that this technology exists in our lives is emerging and changing. And so our understanding and experience with it and information about it is going to change over time. So you can have a strong feeling, but I encourage you to hold it loosely because it might shift over time. So our goal is to give you a few things to consider when deciding how you would like to interact with AI systems. And the first thing I want to talk about is all of that data and the copyright issues that come along with that. So as we've talked about, all of these models are based on data, and some of that data came from sites that had paywalls, that were pirated books, artist portfolios, academic journals. All of those different things were swept up into the data set that the model is then trained on. And sometimes those authors and artists didn't either have a say in that happening or maybe weren't even aware of it happening. I know that I published an article years ago when I was at the university, and I got a notification that the company that ran the journal that I had that published in was going to be partnering with some AI tools, and that my article was going to be part of that data set. And I can guarantee you that when I wrote that article, it never occurred to me that that material would be used in that way. So I didn't quite have my futures thinking cap on all the way when I when I wrote that. And so, as you can imagine, this has resulted in several lawsuits regarding copyright. Lots of those are still pending. As others have already said, there's a lot of murkiness around this topic currently. But one thing that we do know for sure is that you cannot copyright work that was generated entirely with an AI tool because a human didn't make it, a computer did. We also know that there are some AI companies that used content that they legitimately purchased, and that then they were legally allowed to use that material and that content however they wanted. And as I mentioned, there's some academic journals that have gotten onto that boat. There's also some news sites that have brokered deals with AI companies, allowing them to train various AI tools on that copyrighted material. And so, as Doug said, it isn't creating new content it is actually just reconfiguring all of this content it's been fed into a thing that might seem like it's new. But in a lot of ways, it's just reproducing the original. So I think a good example of this is thinking about some of the image simulators where you can go in and tell it the style of art, even maybe the name of the artist, the type of image, and it can basically what it's doing is taking all of the pictures it already has about the artwork that you just described and making the same thing all over again. Which brings up some interesting questions about art creation and human involvement in the production of art. And that could be a whole other webinar if y'all are interested in that. So there's some really vigorous debate in this area, which is fascinating among artists and authors and AI companies about what writing, what art creation looks like in the future if AI plays a role in those creating of those materials. So we've kind of talked about this more on like a personal level, but we are all here also as people that work for organizations, public-facing organizations. And it's important for you to figure out where the organization stands. So does your organization already have an AI policy? If you work at a library that is part of the city, maybe you need to look at the city and see if they have an AI policy. Does your university have one? If not, consider whether creating one or adding it into an existing policy is a good idea. So one example I can think of this is some libraries in the state are starting to add bits to their collection development policies about AI generated content. And kind of like we mentioned earlier, that there's audiobooks that are being created with AI generation. Same thing for ebooks. So there's lots of ways to think about how this impacts the way that your organization is seen. Next thing I want to talk about is bias, which might bring to mind the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. So AI systems are trained on human-produced data, and humans are also the ones that are determining how that data is moved around. And all humans have bias. That's just part of being human. So it would make sense that those tools that we're using, of a variety of AI tools, also have bias in them. One example that you've maybe heard of is asking an image generation tool to produce pictures of doctors. And a lot of them will spit out predominantly pictures of male presenting white people as the only image of a doctor that AI bot understands. Another one that I have read about is facial recognition software and it being used out in the field and it not being able to read the facial features of people with darker skin because the model was trained predominantly on people who had much lighter skin. And so you can imagine there are some pretty serious ramifications for tools that are developed with that kind of blind spot and that bias in mind. It's also important to think about, so like the output of these tools. And so it's about what's going in, but it's also then about what's coming out and how you and your organization are using those outputs. They won't always align with your personal or professional values or ethics. They're only as good as the humans that created them. So there were a couple of people that mentioned using Canva AI or even AI that's built into PowerPoint. So if you are using it to generate images, think about how that image is representing either the group that you're hoping that shows up at the program that you're running, or is it representative of the community that uses your library? Which brings me to a fun topic. The next thing we're going to talk about is slop. And AI slop is low quality content that is clearly didn't take a lot of time to be produced. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense, or the purpose of it seems really vague, and not super useful, I would say, is the other trait of maybe slop. And this is something that is becoming more prevalent across the internet because AI tools that we have make it really easy to create content. And so what's happening is that there is a shift, maybe an imbalance that we're working towards, where websites like Pinterest or Google Images or Facebook are being flooded with this content. I even see discussions on LinkedIn about people using AI to like auto-generate their posts on LinkedIn, which isn't necessarily a bad idea, but it might be the way that they're using it that it isn't actually adding to the discussion. And the other thing that's happening is that because there is this influx of the slop, it means that authentic content that is created by humans, so your friends, your family, your colleagues, that is being drowned out and diminished across the internet. So I'm pretty sure we've probably all seen this. And as a number of folks said in the chat, you go and use a search engine nowadays, and one of the first hits is now some sort of AI assisted summary or response. So, I mean, I feel like that's a really big, obvious way that that this is happening. And you don't always have insight into how that content is being gathered and then served to you. I saw a chart recently where I think it was ChatGPT that one of, as far as using that as like a search engine tool, one of the first places that it's getting its data from is Reddit, which if any of you know Reddit, it's a wonderful, mysterious place that is full of wonderful and horrible things all at the same time. So it's important to keep the usability and the relevance in mind when working with these tools. With some people using AI to create slop, it really becomes even more important to curate your online presence to accurately reflect yourselves and your organizations. So really leaning into kind of the mission and the goals of what your organization does and making sure that that aligns with the values and the ethics of your organization. All right, last, I want to talk about some of the environmental impacts of using AI. And those of us at the Commission that have kind of been scanning and keeping tabs on these discussions, this is something that often seems like it is glossed over. So we wanted to make some space for it today. If you haven't heard, AI uses a lot of electricity. And the other part of that is we don't actually know for sure how much, because so much of the way that these companies often work is kind of murky in a black box. It's hard to get insight into it because they're private companies. But it is estimated that using ChatGPT or Google with AI added is significantly more watt hours than a simple search without AI. And so that's what this chart is showing here. And along with that, there's also all of the water that is being used to cool data centers. So, so you can see this is a lot of extra energy. And we're talking like, in some cases, more than a small country in an entire year. So around 85 to 134 terawatt hours of electricity annually, which is wild. And that's all being processed at data centers, which are cropping up all over the US. Meta, Facebook's parent company, has just put one in CUNA. And to keep all of those computers cool so they don't overheat, you need a significant amount of water to make sure that happens. One of the trends that I'm seeing in some places is that communities are pushing back on these data centers opening in their communities as more people become aware of the environmental impact of these data centers. So one example is there's a community in Arizona that recently lobbied to not have a data center built in their community because they understand they live in Arizona, a very arid state, and realizing that the amount of water that would need to go to the data center would then have negative impact on other industries in the area, like agriculture, or even the municipality's access to drinking water. There's one report that I read that at the time, data that they were able to find compared doing a 100-word prompt in ChatGPT. For every time you did that, you should dump out one bottle, like one, individual bottle of drinking water. So imagine if this is technology that becomes built into everything that we use, and we're dumping out bottles of water all day long and don't even really realize it. So it's really important to be aware of any potential impacts that this boom and technology might have on your local ecosystems, because all of our ecosystems are connected. And so something that happens here is going to impact folks elsewhere in the state, across the nation, and across the planet. That was really kind of a downer of a point to end on. But with that, what we want to do is give you some time to chat. We've thrown a lot of information at you. Your brains are probably going with all sorts of ideas. So to help you focus, we want to give you 2 questions to think about. What is something you learned? So what's something you know now that you didn't know when you joined us at the beginning of this webinar? And what do you want to learn more about? What's something you're curious about? What's something that we shared that you're like, I didn't know that. I wonder how I might learn more about that. And so we're going to go ahead and put people into breakout rooms. There's going to be an ICFL person in each room to help get the conversation going and rolling. And we'll go ahead and give people about 5 minutes to chat, and then we'll have everyone come back into the main room and see if there's time to do some share out. William, open the breakout rooms.
I think we're running a little bit out of time, and so I want to make sure that we have some time for questions if folks have questions to throw in the chat. But if you talked about anything especially fascinating in those breakout rooms, go ahead and put that in the chat as well, so we can do a little share out from your small groups, because I know we had a good discussion in our breakout room, and I bet the rest of y'all did too. So exciting to hear about what everyone talked about in their rooms. And then another chat-based thing for you, Allison is going to throw some resources that we really like for you all to learn more in the chat here in a second. But if you're using resources to learn more about AI, we want to hear those too. So anything that you all are reading or using that looks especially interesting or cool that you really like and think the rest of us should know about, please throw that in the chat as well. But for our quick wrap up here, we just threw an absolute ton of information at you. And we do not expect you to remember all of it. So to end off, before we move into questions real fast, three quick tips. You remember that Reagan quote, "Trust but verify"? Swap it around for AI. Verify anything and everything that it produces, and then you can trust it, maybe. AI can be a really good brainstorming buddy. A lot of tools are great places to get started with drafting or coming up with concepts. I know a lot of people get terrified of that blank white page and the blinky cursor. AI can be really helpful to get over that initial hump and to come up with some great ideas. It's not smarter than you, but they do have a larger database to pull from than you have in your brain. And lastly, AI is ever changing. So anything that we talked about today could be different tomorrow, and especially in terms of those legal proceedings and how AI functions. When you're looking at those resources and training, make sure that you're using the most current and up-to-date information that you can get. If you're finding something from 2023, I wouldn't trust it too much because it's moved on. We're already, it's 2025. 2025. You gotta keep up. Tech changes really fast and AI changes even faster. All right, I'm going to leave our contact information on the screen here, but thank you all so much for coming. If you've got questions, throw those into the chat. We really hope that you enjoyed today's session. Our contact info is again on the screen. Reach out with questions. If you think of one an hour or a week from now, reach out and let us know. And then Allison is going to throw that feedback survey in the chat. Please fill that out if you can. Your input really helps me design and improve our future training opportunities. And if you're interested in a deeper dive into tools, creating your own AIs, things like that, please fill out that feedback survey and let me know if we should do a part 2. All right, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna quit sharing my screen. Allison, any questions in the chat?
No questions yet.
Okay. Got about 3 minutes, so just a smidgen of time if there are any questions.
One of the questions that came up in my group was, what type of questions are people getting from the public about AI, if any? Like, is this more like industry library folks are more worried about it now and not getting a whole lot of questions from the public?
Well, if you have any thoughts about that, you can throw it into the chat too. I think that's an interesting question, Dina. I think it probably depends on your library location. Some folks and the level of skill that your patrons have. If your patrons don't know how to use a mouse, they probably are not paying attention to AI as much. See, Mike's got in the chat, what is this AI thing all about? I love that as a question. That's a really great starting point, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way, even if they know quite a bit about AI or are still learning. I think, yeah, what are we even doing here is a great question to start out. But that's a curiosity mindset. That's great. Got to keep learning, got to keep growing. That's a great question. All right. There aren't any other questions, and I'm not seeing any in the chat. I think we will let you all go with a minute learning more about AI policies. That's a great point, Debbie. I will, in our follow-up email, send some example policies that we've seen, but you can also throw that into the survey as well, because that could be an entire webinar all by itself. So if that's something that a lot of you are interested in, please let me know. But with that, we're going to finish up. Thank you all again so much for coming and for taking the time to fill out that feedback survey. That really helps us out. Appreciate you all taking an hour out of your Wednesday.